In this video, we're talking all things Toronto.
The do's and don'ts, our favorite spots, and what costs to expect. Let's jump in.
For our trip, we had 4 days booked for Toronto and wanted to fill each of them with top-tier attractions, neighborhood favorites, and foodie hotspots. We stayed with some local friends who were kind enough to house us during our trip and gave us their input on must-see places. Because of that, we're happy to say the following list is local approved. Here we go.
Shortly after arriving in the city, we hit the ground running by going to one of the more touristy areas near the waterfront on Bremner Blvd. This is where you'll find attractions such as the CN Tower, Ripley's Aquarium, Rogers Centre, and Roundhouse Park.
After taking many photos of the CN Tower, probably too many, we walked over to Roundhouse Park. It's a repurposed locomotive roundhouse where you'll find the Toronto Railway Museum, a great view of the skyline, and one of my favorite spots on the trip, Steam Whistle Brewing. This brewery takes pride in making premium Canadian beer from all natural ingredients. The brew is delicious, and having grown up loving trains, I really enjoyed the whole vibe of this place.
Our next stop was the Harbourfront, which was just a short walk from Roundhouse Park. This area is great for taking a stroll, sitting by the water, or enjoying the many food vendors along the front. We both found comfort snacks here. My South Indian self enjoyed a refreshing spicy mango smoothie from Matt's.
And my New Jersey self enjoyed a slice from Mama's Pizza. On our way back to the CN Tower, we stopped to admire Rogers Centre since it's the home of Canada's only remaining baseball team, the Toronto Blue Jays. This area can be pretty packed if you visit on a game day, so be prepared if you're here during baseball season. There wasn't a game while we were there, but there is a Blue Jays gift shop that's worth checking out. You can find it on the lower level of the ballpark facing CN Tower.
We saw a lot of fun sights during our city walk, but my favorite was definitely the Berczy Dog Fountain on Wellington Street. I love fountains and love doggos, so if you're like me, this should be on your to-see list. As a bonus, there's a Tim Hortons next door if you need a quick pick-me-up. Make sure you go to a Timmy's location at least once during your Canada trip.
After admiring the Fountain of Good Boys, it was time to head back to CN Tower to catch the sunset from the top floor. While this experience was cool, there are a few things you should know before visiting CN Tower.
First, buy your tickets online. It's a little cheaper than buying them on location and will save you some time in a queue. Trust me, there'll be plenty of those later. The ticket will have an entry time on it, but please be aware this does not mean you will get to the observation deck at your assigned time. You'll queue up a few minutes before that to enter the building and then wait in a long line for the elevator. We waited for 45 minutes before we finally headed up the tower. Once we got up there, the view was gorgeous. We missed the sunset, but it was still awesome to see the city begin to light up. It can get a little crowded up there, so if you're not a fan of heights or you're claustrophobic, this attraction might not be for you.
After a few minutes, we made our way over to the Skypod, which is 33 stories higher than the main observation point. The Skypod only allows a handful of people up at a time, but has no time limit, so we had to wait in yet another elevator line. It took another 50 minutes to get up to the Skypod. It was pitch dark when we got up there, but there was still a pretty stellar view even though we couldn't see the harbor. All in all, the CN Tower experience is a Toronto staple, but just be sure to factor in enough time for elevator lines. Better yet, try to get there when it's less busy, which is typically first thing in the morning or on a weekday. If the observation deck doesn't make it on your itinerary, don't worry. There are plenty of other spots to see the skyline, and I promise that the tower will still somehow show up in all of your photos.
The next day, we started at Casa Loma, a historic Gothic mansion that has seen years of history and today is used for special events and tourism. This Canadian landmark was the backdrop for a variety of Hollywood films like Billy Madison and the first X-Men. This was one of our favorite spots on the trip. There's a little something for everyone. Parking is a bit limited, so it might be best to start your day here if you decide to visit. Also, they had some of the fanciest bathrooms in existence. You'll see.
Our next stop was Kensington Market, a colorful neighborhood with a variety of local boutiques and eateries. This place combined local vendors and thrift shops with international restaurants and cafes. On top of that, the whole place is covered in art.
Speaking of art, one of my favorite finds was here. It was a new authentic Belgian waffle place called Waffles and More. It was run by a family who had just moved from Belgium and is relatively new. I love me some Belgian waffles, and the waffle on a stick I got was one of the best I've ever had. They even had a patio where you can chill and enjoy your dessert. I highly recommend this place. It will blow you away. With a variety of flavors, arts, and shops, and a badge of local approval, Kensington Market should definitely be on your Toronto itinerary.
Speaking of arts and culture, our next destination is the Distillery District. We closed out our second day in Toronto at this transformed center of entertainment. This once massive whiskey distillery has been transformed into a hub for food, art galleries, and entertainment. When we arrived, they were prepping to show a movie in the square. If you visit during the holidays, they host a massive Christmas market here too. We had an incredible evening listening listening to local performers and visiting the unique shops in this cobblestoned area. If you're looking for a great place to spend a Toronto evening, the Distillery District is definitely worth a visit.
Later that evening, we were introduced to 2 different restaurants by our local friends. They've both earned their mention on our list. First up was Minerva Tiffins, a South Indian restaurant where we got multiple types of dosas and some of the fluffiest vadas I've ever had in North America. It was the perfect food to conclude our long day, and it made my South Indian heart very happy.
While dinner was filling, we still had room for a mind-blowing dessert at The Cups. Between the shaved ice with mango and the maple waffle with ice cream, our hearts and stomachs were full by the end of the day. The Cups had a few locations scattered around the city, so if you see one in your travels, prepare for the goodness. We slept really well that night.
The following morning, after grabbing some Tim Hortons, we ventured back to the Harbourfront to take a water taxi to Toronto Islands. 2 things to know before getting there. Parking by the water taxis is quite expensive, and your water taxi ticket isn't for a round trip. You'll pay for the second one while returning from the island. Once you get on the boat, though, you'll instantly see why this is a worthwhile experience. Remember how we said earlier there would be other great skyline views? These are some of the best we saw on the trip, hands down. The boat ride across Lake Ontario was a calm and beautiful experience.
We spent a lot of our day on Ward's Island, enjoying its serene beaches, bike trails, captivating skyline backdrop, gardens, piers, and boardwalks along the lake. The boardwalk brought us to the Riviera, a restaurant our local friend had told us about. Apparently their toffee blondie was extraordinary, so we tried it. Looking back, I don't think extraordinary is a strong enough word. Don't believe us? You'll have to try it for yourself when you visit.
Toronto Islands was easily our personal favorite spot in Toronto to see. The views, the vibe, and the tranquility of it all were unmatched. Plan a day around this one because we spent hours taking it all in. Pack a picnic and rent bikes or kayaks to make the most of your island adventure. And don't forget to bring sunscreen.
I approve that. After another awesome boat ride back, we spent the rest of the evening hanging with our friends, prepping for a big day 4, and since we're from the States, trying Canadian Burger King's buttered chicken sandwich. That's a real thing, we promise. And it saves some budget while still being something new and delicious to try. For our last day in Toronto, we decided to take advantage of the city's close proximity to Niagara Falls.
Since traffic wasn't looking great, we decided to take a train. We arrived at Toronto's Union Station early in the morning and got our round-trip tickets there. The pleasant train ride was 2 hours long, but it didn't feel like it at all. We took an Uber from the station to the falls, and right away we found out that there are no bad views of this remarkable sight. We took our time just admiring the falls from the many vantage points surrounding them. We worked hard on trying to film the best angles we could, but we both can admit that videos will never do Niagara Falls justice. After being topside for a while, we decided to head down to the boats to soak in the sights figuratively and very literally. Armed with mighty poncho, we boarded a boat to get a closer look at the majestic falls.
If you're trying to get photos or videos of Niagara Falls from the boat, allow me to save you some trouble. The very back of the boat on the top deck is the sweet spot. The closer you get to the falls, the more intense the winds and mists will get. Take your selfies with the falls as you approach while the water hits your back. As everyone at the front struggles to get photos, put your phone down and just enjoy the view for a second. You'll be glad you did. Once the boat pulls away, you now have a beautiful front row seat to the falls. And as an added bonus, you might even catch the Canadian flag that's on the back of the boat in your foreground. Hope this helps you get a great photo and a great memory. After we concluded the boat ride and met a falcon named Bullet at the exit, we set out to see what was around the falls. I wish I knew about this one area before we got there. We found an area nearby called Falls Avenue. It's right across the street from Rainbow Bridge. It hosts many appealing attractions including Adventure City Arcade, Rainforest Cafe, a Coca-Cola bar, and one of my favorite chains to visit, Hard Rock Cafe. It also hosts the only Hershey's Chocolate World store in Canada. My wife loves dark chocolate and I'm a huge sucker for Reese's, so we had to stop in. Besides having loads of chocolate and sweet merch, they also had a full-on bakery full of awesome Hershey desserts. The attractions don't end there because the street next door is filled with fun houses, wax museums, carnival rides, restaurants, Canadian gift shops, and more. If you're looking for some fun things to visit after seeing Niagara Falls, Falls Avenue is definitely worth checking out.
Right next door is a beautiful area called Oaks Garden Theatre. You can find this gorgeous park across from the Hard Rock Cafe. We fell in love right after walking through the pergola. We sat and relaxed here for a while, admiring the falls from across the way. This gorgeous viewpoint also hosts a restaurant and shop called the Secret Garden. We had to go there after we saw it had the cutest teapots and cups in the front window. Once we were ready to head back to the train station, we saved some money on an Uber by utilizing the WeGo Shuttle service. Shuttle tickets can be bought at any of the Niagara Falls welcome centers. The shuttles run on both sides of the road, so be sure you listen to which bus is going where you want it to. We arrived at the train with minutes to spare. One thing we found out is that Canadian trains don't mess around. Every train we took on our trip was punctual, so be sure to board on time if you decide to use trains during your trip. We got back to Union Station in the evening and grabbed Tim Hortons one more time, because we're tourists.
And that's our list of top things to do in and around Toronto. If you've been here before and you have more things to add, please comment them down below.
We'll be sharing more travel experiences, tips, and tricks in the future, so please like and subscribe to follow along. See you on the next adventure!